yourself probably, everything that you've been talking about, Julie, sounds great, but my situation is different. I have kids, I have a demanding job, I have a demanding family. You don't understand. My family doesn't take no for an answer. I have too many responsibilities and they're not going anywhere. I've tried everything else. I've been dealing with this for years. The list goes on and on and on as to why you feel that you have to stay stuck in burnout, in chronic fatigue, dealing with all your autoimmune issues, your chronic pain issues, right? And listen, I'm not here to dismiss your circumstances because your circumstances are your circumstances. I've been there, right? But I want you to start looking at your circumstances as maybe having taught you to believe what's possible for you. And that's what I want to talk about in this live today. It's not that your situation isn't hard, because look, anybody going through health issues, burnout, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, it's not easy. I know, I've been there. It is not easy. You feel like you don't recognize yourself. You can no longer do the things you once enjoyed doing. Your life is just different and it just shifts everything. And I get it. But that doesn't mean that you have to be powerless in your situation. And again, that's what I want to talk about in today's live. So if this is your first time here, my name is Julie Jameson. I am an embodied healing coach helping women dealing with burnout, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues get their life back, finally return to who they were before the illness, before their health went down the drain, and start enjoying life again with little to no health symptoms. So if you're interested in my Return to Self program, the link is here below and you can get more information on that. But today we're going to be talking about the belief that your the belief that your situation is different. Again, because your situation doesn't mean that you have to be powerless in your situation. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And listen, your belief comes from evidence, right? It comes from evidence that you've collected over time, such as you tried to rest and nothing has happened. You've tried to set a boundary and it didn't work, or people were upset at you and they didn't understand it. Maybe you took time for yourself and everything around you fell apart. Things didn't like, everything fell apart and nothing was working right because you decided to take time for yourself. Maybe you've tried the diets, the the supplements, resting, the new routine. Maybe you tried to take a vacation, meditate, and things like that. And the brain said to you, you see, nothing works for me. Because like I mentioned before, the brain is a very powerful tool. It does not like change. The brain does not like change. So whenever you switch things up to the brain, it's going to fight you like a toddler. It's going to be kicking and screaming. Nope, this doesn't work. You're crazy. Like, what do you mean resting? Resting is uncomfortable. I need to be doing something. I can't just be, doing nothing and just twiddling my thumbs. Like, I have to be productive. I have to do something or else I'm lazy. Right? But what if the conclusion isn't that nothing is working for you? What if the conclusion isn't that nothing is working for you? What if the approach you've been using hasn't addressed the actual problem? What if the approach you've been using hasn't addressed the actual problem? So I'm going to walk you through like this framework, right, of circumstance, interpretation, response, and result to kind of give you an idea how this works. So the circumstance is I have kids and a demanding job. Your interpretation is therefore I can't prioritize myself. The response is now I'm going to keep saying yes, pushing through and ignoring my capacity because interpretation is I can't prioritize myself. So what does the result become? I'm more exhausted and now I've become resentful. Let's go through that one more time. The circumstances that I have kids and a demanding job. Your interpretation of that is I can't prioritize myself. This over here so I can see the comments as they come. So I can't see the comments. If you drop the comment, I didn't see it. So if you want to drop it again, feel free. I have 3 kids and a demanding job is the circumstance. The interpretation is therefore I cannot prioritize myself. The response is I keep saying yes, pushing through and ignoring my capacity. So the result is I now become more exhausted and now I'm resentful. So what if the circumstance isn't the only thing creating the result? Because listen, you're not going to be able to change having children. You're not going to be able to change your family. You're not going to be able to change your job, your responsibilities, the fact that you have a chronic illness, the fact that people depend on you. Those are things that are out of your control. You can't change those things, right? But there are things that you can change. You can change how available you are to other people and to other things. You can change whether or not you say yes to things, whether or not you say no to things, how you communicate your needs, how much you expect from yourself, what you consider to be good enough, to my perfectionists out there, what you believe you're responsible for, and whether you allow other people to experience disappointment. These are things that you can change and that are in your control. This is where you start to take your power back, right? So there needs to be a shift in your belief patterns. And this is what I want to get into. So instead of saying I can't take care of myself because too many people depend on me, I want you to instead shift that and say I can care for the people I love without abandoning myself. You see that shift there? So instead of saying I can't take care of myself because too many people depend on me, I can care for the people I love without abandoning myself. So now you've placed limits in the amount of care you give to people, how much care you give to them. And you're also not abandoning yourself in the process. So you're not ignoring your capacity. You're not ignoring whether you're tired. You're not ignoring what your body's telling you. So that's the shift there that I want to talk about, right? So another shift that we can give as an example is if I say no, I'm selfish. That's a big one for us, right? You know, we feel bad if we say no because maybe we're being selfish, or maybe, you know, it's just not, that's not nice to do. So instead shift that to be a boundary doesn't make me selfish. Another example, if someone is disappointed in me, I've done something wrong. Shift that to say someone else's disappointment doesn't mean I've made the wrong choice. Someone else's disappointment doesn't mean I've made the wrong choice. And instead of thinking rest means I'm being lazy, how about you shift that to rest is part of how I care for myself and how much I show myself that I love myself. I have to be the strong one for everyone. How about shifting that to I need support too sometimes? So that you're not overgiving and overgiving and overgiving, and you're also thinking about the things that you need. Another shift that we can do is instead of I can't slow down because everything will fall apart, shifting that to I can begin changing what is within my control. because beliefs are beliefs, right? But we have to learn to take our power back from those beliefs, because our brains will make us think that we are wrong in every possible way. And if we continue to listen to our brain instead of listening to our bodies, the burnout is going to continue, the chronic fatigue is going to continue, the flare ups to the autoimmune issues are going to continue, the chronic pain is going to continue. Because when we are trying to get out of burnout and trying to get out of these autoimmune issues that are debilitating us, and the chronic fatigue and the chronic pain, you cannot listen to your brain. You have to listen to your body instead. Because, like I've said before, our body is always communicating to us and letting us know when we are reaching our capacity. The problem is that we don't listen to it. We don't have the discipline to listen to our body. We have the discipline to be there for everyone else and to take care of everyone else, but we don't have the discipline to listen to our bodies and to slow down, because our bodies are on overdrive. Our bodies are on overdrive, and our bodies are always telling us you need to slow down, but we override that because we listen to our brain instead of our body, which is why so many of us are dealing with burnout, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, autoimmune issues, because we are not paying attention to the signals that our bodies are giving us. So we have to learn to take our power back and shift our belief to, I can't rest because I'm lazy. Instead, saying rest is how I show myself that I love myself. Rest is how I show myself that I do indeed care about myself. Because the brain is going to rebel. The brain is going to be kicking and screaming of like, I don't like this. This feels uncomfortable. No, I got to be moving. I got to be doing something. I can't just be sitting still. Resting is for, I rest when I die. Like, I can't be resting. No way. I have to be doing something. No. You don't listen to your brain, you listen to your body, because your body has been giving you cues that you are exhausted through the migraines, through the sleepless nights, through the crankiness, through the brain fog, through the joint pain, through, for some of us, the stomach issues, digestive issues, cognitive issues, and the list goes on and on and on. So who do you need to become to create the life that you want? Because this is possible for you. It is possible for you to live a life that does not drag you down by burnout and by health issues. You don't have to become a different person, right? But you do need to become a woman who is willing to disappoint people. Because when you choose yourself, that means that someone else isn't getting what they want. But who's the main character here? You are. You are always the main character, especially if you're a mom. Because if you're not well, no one else is well. The house doesn't function properly if the mother is not doing well. You have to be willing to be imperfect. For my perfectionists, this is for my perfectionists. You don't need to do everything perfectly to be worthy. Because I was that girl who would like spend hours on like moving things an inch here and an inch there, because it had to be this way and it had to be that way, and if it wasn't that way, it wasn't good enough. Mind you, other people didn't even realize that little tiny thing that I was so fixated on. You have to become someone who is willing to ask for help. You have to be someone who is willing to ask for help, which means you don't have to prove that you can carry everything alone. I know a lot of us grew up with, being the strong one and not having to ask for help and being capable of doing all the things. I grew up that way, and I used to use it as a badge of honor of like, I'm strong, I'm superwoman, I don't need anybody's help, I can do everything on my own. But what did that lead me to? Burnout, chronic pain. Because you can only hold but so much. You can only do but so much. This is why we need community. This is why we need help. This is why we need a support system, because you cannot do it on your own. You can, in theory, do it on your own. But should you have to do it on your own? You shouldn't have to hold the burden of so much responsibility all on your own when there are people who are willing to help you and who are able to help you. You have to be willing to feel guilty. And this is a huge one. Huge. You have to be willing to feel guilty, because when you start saying no and when you start setting those boundaries and maintaining them, because maintaining is a whole nother story, you are going to feel guilty. It's inevitable and it's going to feel like shit, trust me. Till this day, it stings a little. But I know that I have to maintain that boundary in order to stay sane, in order to be healthy, in order to be there for my children, for my husband. In order for me to be my best self, I have to have boundaries. I have to say no, and I have to be willing to disappoint people. And I have to be willing to sometimes feel guilty about it. But I also know that at the end of the day, the world is not going to crumble and nobody's going to die. You're going to have to learn that I can feel guilty and still choose myself. I can feel guilty and still choose myself. And this is actually the internal dialogue that happens to me whenever I feel guilty about setting a boundary or saying no. I always tell myself, in this decision, Julie, you are choosing yourself. And yourself is always the most important person. And that eases the guilt for me a little bit, because the guilt is there. Because I'm like, oh, I could just do it. I'm already, like, I'm going to be over there anyway, so might as well. But no, why do I have to add something else onto my plate? Sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you have to maintain a boundary. You have to set a boundary. You have to be willing to also trust yourself. Instead of looking outside for permission or for validation, you have to start learning to trust yourself. That's another big one. And you have to be willing to acknowledge your capacity. This is probably the biggest one of all. Because your capacity will let you know what you can say yes to, what you should be saying no to, what boundaries you need to set when you've reached your limit. And your body will tell you when you are reaching your capacity through the symptoms that it starts showing you, through the physical symptoms, whether it's a headache, a migraine, maybe it's exhaustion, maybe you're cranky, maybe you can't formulate a sentence because you're just like going at 1,000 miles an hour and your brain can't keep up. Maybe you're dealing with brain fatigue, and so on and so forth. So don't think to yourself, can I technically squeeze this in? Because we all know you could squeeze it in. We all know that you can make room for everything and anything. We know this because you're the doer and the fixer, right? This is who you are. But the question needs to be, do I actually have the capacity for this? Not only like physically, but mentally. Do I actually have the capacity for this? Because think about it. Let's say somebody tells you, oh, or your child says, Mommy, I need a ride here. It's not just physically driving them there. You mentally have to be present, because now you have to follow the signs on the road. You have to make sure that, you don't hit anybody on the way there. You have to make sure that you're paying attention to the odometer and all the things in the car. Like, so it's not just like your physical self that needs to be able to have the capacity, but also your brain and your mentally you have to be able to know that you have the capacity to get this thing done. So the picture is always bigger than what it looks like. So when you stop believing that your situation, right, makes change impossible, which is what some of you guys, that thought may have crossed your mind, a different set of possibilities become available to you, right? You realize that you have more choices than what you thought you had, right? Which leads me to choice. You realize you have more choices than you thought. Another thing that becomes available is boundaries. You can decide what you're available for. You can decide what you're available for. Nobody should be dictating to you what you're available for. That's your choice, right? Rest. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to feel worthy of rest. Rest is something that everybody should be doing. A lot of us are not functioning well because we're not getting enough sleep, because we're burnt out, because we're doing too much. By the time that we hit our heads on that pillow, like we can't even go to sleep because our minds are racing 100 miles an hour about the things that we need to do the next day, or the things that didn't get done today, and we're beating ourselves up about that, or we're running through scenarios in our heads of how we could have done things better, of what we could have said to this person, what we could have said to that person. And so we are not sleeping properly. Support. You don't have to carry everything alone. Self-trust. You begin to trust your own needs and your own decisions, because listen, we all know that you're highly capable. We all know this. You're a high achiever. So when it comes to making decisions for other things, you have to have the same confidence when it comes to making decisions for yourself. Energy. And it's not because life becomes less demanding, right? It's because you're no longer spending so much energy overriding yourself. So all of a sudden, energy, you start having energy again. You're like, oh my God, I actually have energy to read this book. Have the mental space to actually follow along in this book, and I'm not like, I don't feel like I can't focus, you know? Peace. Not because everything around you is perfect, because nothing is ever perfect. It just isn't. That's the reality of things. But because you aren't constantly fighting yourself and other people, right? You've said no and it's a complete sentence. And you're like, it is what it is. You don't like it? That's your problem. That is your problem. And this is the work that we do inside my Return to Self program. And look, it's not another list of things for you to do, because I know that you're already overwhelmed. We don't need a list of things that we need to do, because that's just adding to the issues, right? But we have to start looking at the beliefs, the patterns, the emotional responses, and the survival strategies that got you to where you are. And that is tied to the behavior that led you to where you are, right? Because it's all in the pattern. It's always all in the pattern. We begin practicing a different way of relating to yourself, your needs, your capacity, your boundaries, and your life. So again, we walk through that awareness, the emotional processing, reconnection, the new changes, and then the integration. Why can I not say that word? Integration. We're not trying to create a life where nothing is difficult, because that's just not realistic. Life is gonna life. It's gonna life for you. It's gonna life for me. That's just life. It's filled with ebbs and flows, mountains, valleys, peaks, all of that. We're creating a relationship with yourself that allows you to navigate difficult things differently. Because, like I said, life is going to life. I just want to mention that applications are open for my Return to Self program. The link is down below. If this sounds like something that can help you on your journey to coming out of burnout, out of chronic pain, chronic fatigue, and trying to resolve or put into remission, I should say, your autoimmune issues, The link is down below for you to schedule a next step call to see if this program is a right fit for you. Um, and we can go over the details of the program and that call. But I want you to come out of this remembering that your situation may be different, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible. And it is how you navigate your beliefs, because there are things that are out of your control. Like, you can't change the fact that you have kids, you can't change your job, you can't change your family. They are who they are, but you can change how you respond to them. You can change how you respond to different situations. That you do have control over, and that's what we focus on. You can start taking care of the people you love without abandoning yourself, without feeling like you don't recognize who you are anymore. Like, you look at yourself in the mirror and you don't know who's looking back at you anymore, because you've gone so down this deep black hole of just doing for everyone and being there for everyone and putting everybody's needs before your needs, that you've forgotten who you are. You've forgotten the things that bring you joy. You've forgotten to do the things that bring you joy. So listen, you don't have to believe that everything will be easy, because like I said, life is going to life. It is what it is. We don't have control over that. You only have to become willing to believe that your current way of living isn't the only way that's available to you. You can rest without feeling guilty. You can have a boundary without feeling bad, without feeling selfish about it. You can say no and let it be a full sentence. You can wake up in the morning and not feel stressed out about the day that is ahead of you, because your to-do list isn't mentally running through your head and you're already on edge about all the things that need to get done, including the things that didn't get done yesterday. You don't allow things to frazzle you anymore, because your main objective is to make sure that you are okay. You are the main character in this story, because if you are not okay, no one else is okay. And so I want to leave you with that. The applications are open for Return to Self. The link will be down below. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them here as well. If you're listening to the podcast version of this, please share this podcast episode with any woman who needs it, a woman that you know that's tired of abandoning herself and wants her life back and is tired of being in survival mode. Share this episode with them. And then I will see you next week for our next discussion. So I can't wait for that. Everybody have an amazing weekend, and I hope that you're enjoying the sun no matter where you are on this earth. And I will see you on the next one.